We like to call it Turtleneck Wednesdays, or if you're watching us in the morning, Turtleneck Thursdays. On this edition of Luke Who's Talking with our friend from LaSalle, Ontario, the retired tight end Luke Willson, who played much of his NFL career with the Seattle Seahawks under Pete Carroll. So, Luke, I know this announcement probably hit you, a little bit harder than most. Curious to get your thoughts about Mike Macdonald, because what a move. You go with a guy who's half the age of the previous coach.
Yeah, Jay, I personally thought it was a bit of a strange move. And the reason I say that is, Pete is known as a defensive guy, a defensive guru. That's kind of his thing. Obviously, the defense has not been great the last couple of years. But if you look at the roster, I think that the majority of the talent is on offense. So I figured part of the reason they were trying to move on from Pete, as you know, I was pretty surprised about that, was to try and get, a really new, fresh, young offensive mind in there, which clearly they did not do. And then the next thing, which is, again, a bit strange to me, is if they were going to go to a defensive coach, there was all these rumors and articles talking about how they wanted to try and, protect the culture that Pete had created. Well, Dan Quinn is the guy who can do that. I mean, Dan Quinn was our defensive coordinator when we won the Super Bowl. I mean, he took that same philosophy to Atlanta and had some success there. I was very confused why they said, first and foremost, no to all of the offensive coaches available, particularly Bobby Slowick. And then next step, say no to Dan Quinn, a Pete Carroll disciple, if you will, and bring in, somebody who's a bit unproven as far as a head coach goes. It was a little strange.
He was one of the most talked about coaching candidates out there, so we'll see how he does. 6 years, that's a long time. Luke, we'll get to the Super Bowl, but you made waves on this show Sunday with your reaction to Dan Campbell's fourth down calls. Have a listen to this, everybody. Well, you're disgusted with this.
Disgusted?
Yeah, you're disgusted.
I know we got to get I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm going to lose my mind before this is over. They've got the whole game in control. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm at a loss.
Yeah,
It's so tough for my hometown. I want to cry for the Lions fans, but deep down I also want to laugh because it's hilarious.
You're absolutely on fire Sunday. And, Luke, I wonder if you still feel the same way a few days later. And I also have to ask, how is everyone in your hometown doing after that devastating loss on Sunday?
Well, Jay, I'm going to keep my voice down this time, but I will tell you that I actually am probably more enraged with the decisions. And I want to make something very clear here, because you talk about my hometown, and I think Lions fans in general are really defending these decisions. And the reason that they're doing that is because people are acting like, this could be the death of Dan Campbell. And that's a ridiculous thing. I said on your show, Jay, Dan Campbell is a potential coach of the year. Okay, these decisions do not erase the fact that the man has turned around an organization that literally nobody has been able to do. So you got to tip your cap to Dan Campbell and his work, his body of work. But that being said, these decisions still, they drive me insane. I mean, I just said I'm not going to raise my voice, but I can feel my blood boiling. It makes no sense. They're up 14 points. They can go up by 3 scores. Later on, they can tie the game. We didn't even really get to, because I was losing my mind, as you saw, we didn't even get to talk about the timeout when they were down 10. So I look at this thing, and I just think that when you take in all of the facts, and the facts are you're up 14, you're in control of the game, you can kick the field goal. And I know there's a weird narrative going on social media sites that the field goal kicker is no good. Nonsense. The man had a bad year in 2020. Since playing for the Lions, he's been electric. In that range, 40 to 49 yards, he's currently 9 of 11 with the Lions. Last 2 weeks earlier, he's been perfect in the postseason for field goals. 2 weeks earlier against the Rams, he made a 54-yarder, albeit it was at home, indoors, in a 1-point game. Dan Campbell was not sitting there thinking, I don't think my kicker can make it. That's why I'm going for it. Again, people trying to defend the decision. Any way you slice this thing, I think that it was a very, very poor decision not to kick the football and go up 3 scores. I thought they should have tied the game later, and I also think that they should have kicked for 3 instead of burning a timeout later in the game. And I got to get over it. And as far as my hometown goes, I think that it was a great run. a lot of fun, but I do think that some of the long-term Lion fans are probably still a little hurt because this was certainly a year where they would have had a good chance to, one, go to the Super Bowl and I think win.
Yep, I agree with you, but we got to talk about the teams that made it. So let's start with the Chiefs, who are there for the 4th time in their last 5 seasons. Luke, it's an incredible run. And if Patrick Mahomes and company were able to win a 3rd Super Bowl, do we start to throw them into that dynasty conversation along with the Patriots and Aikman's Cowboys and Joe Montana's Niners? Are we chucking them in that dynasty conversation?
Definitely. Now, the one strange one there is the Patriots, because to me, when you look at the Patriots and their dynasty, there's actually 2 separate dynasties. There's the early years, I believe it was 02, 04, 05, and then it wasn't until 10 years later, I want to say 15, 17, and 19, when they won another 3. So the 10 years in the middle there, still a very strong team, and I think that's what makes that Patriots, dynasty even stronger, is you can kind of connect the 2. But as far as you talk about the Cowboys, you talk about one or the other of the Patriots kind of runs, if the Chiefs get it done here, they're right in the conversation with all the dynasties that the NFL's seen.
Luke, can we talk about Brock Purdy? He's such a fascinating individual. Mid-December, he's an MVP favorite. At one point, he tells everybody in an interview a few weeks ago that at one point, Kyle Shanahan told him if they could have signed Tom Brady last offseason, that Purdy would have been the backup. Now, Purdy might not have even seen the field this season. Do you get the feeling that this guy, despite all he's done this year, he's led this team to the Super Bowl, and as you said on Sunday, he played terrific doing it, but despite all that, do you still feel like he hasn't actually solidified that QB1 position for the Niners?
I don't, Jay. I think he's a QB1, barring something wildly catastrophic happens. I'm talking he goes out here and has the worst game, 4, 5 turnover situation that are all on him. As long as it's not, again, an absolute bloodbath performance, you look at what he's done this season. He had 113 rating. That beats pretty much everyone you can even think of. In the playoffs, he's got the job done. He made throws late against Green Bay and used his feet to close that one out in the 4th quarter in a game where it was pouring rain, and he came back down 17 against the Lions, ran, scrambled, threw great passes. He did everything that everyone's been saying that he can't do. And my next thing is we can't forget here, Jay. This is this guy's 2nd season. Yeah. So the idea that Kyle Shanahan is going to say, hey, you know what? Let's go find someone else that we can kind of develop. He's being developed, meaning Brock Purdy. How much better of a decision maker and a playmaker is he going to be in year 4, year 5, year 6, especially under Kyle Shanahan? I think his QB1 job is safe. I think it's a very, very brutal narrative. I'm not sure why it came, and I expect him to play very well next Sunday.
Okay, finally, Luke, we get to the most important question for all football fans, and I know you feel very strongly about this as well. Will Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift at the end of the Super Bowl, at the end of Super Bowl 58?
I don't think so. I don't think so, Jay. I mean, I love Travis Kelce. I think he's hilarious. A lot of fun stuff going on there. But the idea that, whether they win or lose, that he would kind of steal the spotlight a bit from his teammates and all the people on the field, it just doesn't strike me as the type of guy he is. And again, I don't know him like that. I don't know if he's ready to get married in the first place. But if he was, he just strikes me as such a great teammate that I think he realizes that would take the focus off Kansas City potentially winning a Super Bowl and putting it on him and his engagement, and I do not think that he will be doing that.
Okay, wow, that was a very good answer, Luke. The next time you and I talk, it will be from, you'll be in your spacious suite in Las Vegas on the Strip after having played hours and hours of Pai Gow poker. It's going to be an incredible trip for you. I'm very pumped for you, buddy. So have a great time in Vegas, and I can't wait to chat with you next week.
Appreciate it, Jay.
And don't forget, everybody, these are the odds for the Super Bowl that you will see on TSN. Remember, it started with KC being 3-point underdogs. That line has moved to 1.5, and it moved to 1.5 very quickly. The game is not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 11th, 6:30 Eastern, right here on TSN. Don't forget, after the game is over, Luke will join me from Vegas, from the Super Bowl, to chat about the winner, chat about the loser, and chat about whether or not anybody proposes to anyone that immediately follows Super Bowl 50.